This is wrestling's greatest moments.
Hey now, wrestling fans, it's time for another episode of Wrestling's Greatest Moments. Madison Square Garden is the mecca of professional wrestling, but there are many other fabled venues in the grappling game. Sit back as Wrestling's Greatest Moments looks at Classic Coliseums, the Omni, Steel Cages, and Blood. Before we get started though, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single video. Georgia Championship Wrestling, aka GCW, held many shows at various venues across the Peach State. As Kayfabe Memories Gary Lynch writes, the promotion would have wrestling shows all throughout Georgia. Shows were held in city auditoriums, high school gyms, sports arenas, and outdoor football stadiums. There are even free wrestling shows held at Fulton County Stadium after Braves games. The main wrestling events were on Friday nights at the Atlantic City Auditorium and on Wednesday night at Columbus's Municipal Auditorium. However, the Omni was where cages got roofs, heroes got betrayed, and promoters learned just how far fans were willing to go to see their heroes get revenge. The Omni was more than a building that hosted wrestling history. It stress-tested the future of the business. Prior to the Omni, GCW fans in Atlanta attended shows at the city's Municipal Auditorium. This facility held around 5,100 fans, with its Friday night shows being must-see events. Once the Omni was built, GCW began running super shows there occasionally to capitalize on its much larger seating capacity. Roughly 16,500. Fans got to see matches promoters would never risk on a weekly card, the kind designed to feel spectacular and dangerous. In 1979, the Omni became GCW's #1 arena after the Municipal Auditorium closed to the public. The first GCW show at the Omni took place on May 18, 1973, main evented by a no disqualification, no time limit title versus mask match between Georgia heavyweight champion Cowboy Bill Watts and Mr. Wrestling 1. Watts won, but Mr. Wrestling 1 did not unmask. A four-man Cadillac tournament was just one of many undercard bouts on the show, with Bob Armstrong winning the caddy. According to Bill Watts, who credits promoter Lester Welch with concocting the Cadillac tournament concept, notes that wrestlers actually walked away with the cars, but with a catch. Well, the gimmick with the Cadillac was that, sure you won, but you had to buy the Cadillac from the promotion at cost. Of course, we got the car at a heck of a good price in the first place, because the dealer was getting all of this advertising. GCW held annual Thanksgiving shows, much like nearby promotion Jim Crockett Promotions, aka Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. The Omni adopted this Thanksgiving tradition, eventually turning Thanksgiving night into an annual tag team tournament. In 1978, Terry and Dory Funk Jr. won a 10-team tournament to crown new Georgia Tag Team Champions, defeating arch rivals the Briscoe brothers, Jack and Jerry, in the finals. On May 18, 1979, 10 teams battled for 2 Cadillacs, with Tommy Rich and Wahoo McDaniel downing Ole Anderson and Ivan Koloff in the finals to drive off with the 2 luxury cars. A reminder that stakes outside championships could draw just as strongly. As mentioned, the territory brought in some of wrestling's greatest stars. Stars like Dusty Rhodes and Andre the Giant appeared regularly at the Omni, often stepping in to aid local favorites or headline special attractions that reinforced the venue's big fight aura. Wrestlers weren't limited to the National Wrestling Alliance either, as WWF champion Bob Backlund defended his world title at the Omni. Long before Jim Crockett Promotions launched the Clash of Champions show, the Omni would host a literal Clash of Champions as NWA World Heavyweight Champion Nature Boy Ric Flair met WWF Champion Bob Backlund in a title unification match. Historian Tim Hornbaker notes in his Ric Flair biography, The Last Real World Champion, The Legacy of Nature Boy Ric Flair. Flair and Backlund were no strangers to each other. They had wrestled once before on July 15, 1979 in Toronto, and the WWF champion won by countout. The circumstances were different headed into their Independence Day contest at the Omni Coliseum, and during a pre-bout promotional interview on WTBS, Flair displayed his sly arrogance, casually referring to himself as the Great One. Flair said, "Bobby Backlund, you're a hell of a man, but you're not Ric Flair. Remember that." This time Flair was NWA World Champion, which meant both titles were on the line. Fans weren't disappointed. Flair and Backlund battled in a 20-plus minute classic that ended after both men were counted out. While anyone familiar with title versus title matches between two promotions wasn't surprised, Flair and Backlund carefully created the illusion that the title might be united. Caged Fury. GCW was known for its brutal matches, and like many territories, steel cage matches were the logical climax for feuds. The concept of two or more wrestlers trapped in a cage offered fans a chance to see a babyface finally settle the score, including November 22, 1979's tumultuous tussle where Tommy Wildfire Rich beat Bobby the Brain Heenan in a loser leaves town match, and February 3, 1980's Cage Clash where Mr. Wrestling 2 beat Georgia heavyweight champion the Masked Superstar in a no disqualification, no time limit match to win the title. Fans hoping for a similar conclusion were in for a shock though on July 20th, 1980, when Dusty Rhodes teamed with babyface Ole Anderson to take on the Assassins, with Ole's brother Gene Anderson and the Russian Bear Ivan Koloff serving as special referees. Fans expected to see Rhodes and Anderson dish out punishment to the Assassins, but it was Dusty who was in for the surprise of his life. When Dusty tagged Ole in, Ole tagged him with various blows as every wrestler in the cage joined in, delivering an epic level beatdown until Dusty was finally rescued by babyfaces who broke into the cage. While Dusty Rhodes had his fair share of bad luck at the Omni, that wasn't the case on June 21st, 1981. That night, he defeated Harley Race to capture the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, winning his second world title. It was the kind of moment that fans in attendance would never forget, a reminder that inside the Omni's hallowed halls, anything could happen. The real granddaddy of them all. No, we're not talking about Starrcade at the Omni, but GCW booking the prototype for every no-escape spectacle that followed, the Battle of Atlanta. This steel cage match was the final match in the extended feud between Tommy Wildfire Rich and Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer. Unlike most cage matches, this one had a roof over the cage to prevent any escape. On October 23, 1983, 10,600 fans watched Rich defeat Sawyer, putting an end to their feud and giving Ole Anderson 5 minutes with Sawyer's manager, Precious Paul Allering, who had been suspended in a cage above the cage. Much has been said about the last Battle of Atlanta's legacy, and it's all true. The match was a forerunner to WarGames, Hell in a Cell, and every other supercharged cage match in existence. Black Saturday. On Saturday, July 14, 1984, Georgia Championship Wrestling fans witnessed the end of their world. During a WTBS broadcast of World Championship Wrestling, Vince McMahon appeared on screen to announce that fans would now have the privilege of watching WWF programming every week on the Superstation. The moment would forever be known as Black Saturday. Fans were furious. Letters flooded WTBS asking what had happened and demanding answers. For longtime GCW viewers, this wasn't a simple programming change. It was the death of a shared ritual, a regional identity, and a style of wrestling that felt like it belonged to them. The behind-the-scenes maneuverings that led to McMahon's acquisition of Georgia Championship Wrestling, and more importantly, its valuable Saturday night time slot, has been well documented. What's often overlooked, though, is that the WWF continued running live events at the Omni Coliseum for nearly a year, from August 1984 through July 1985. Initial ticket sales were respectable. According to the history of WWE.com, the WWF's first Omni show drew approximately 9,000 fans, but the honeymoon was brief. Atlanta audiences quickly grew weary of the WWF's presentation, which clashed sharply with the Southern style of wrestling they had grown up on. Attendance plummeted. One later WWF show at the Omni reportedly drew a staggeringly low 900 fans. Eventually, Jim Crockett Promotions purchased the time slot, restoring a sense of normalcy for fans who never acclimated to the WWF's approach. While the wrestling world would never be quite the same, the return of a more familiar style felt, at the very least, like order emerging from chaos. The genesis of the Horsemen. On September 29, 1985, NWA World Heavyweight Champion Nature Boy Ric Flair successfully defended his title against the Russian Nightmare Nikita Koloff. Disgusted with Flair's win, Nikita's allies, Uncle Ivan Koloff and American turncoat Crusher Khrushchev rushed the ring, beating Flair down. Fortunately for Flair, the American Dream Dusty Rhodes ran in. Driving off the Koloffs, Rhodes had formed an uneasy alliance with Flair, who was working as a tweener. Then, the Minnesota Wrecking Crew's Arn and Ole Anderson ran in. As noted in the book, Wrestling's Greatest Moments, with the Russians out of the picture, Rhodes extended his hand to Flair. Rather than take it in friendship, Flair snubbed the American Dream and walked to the door as the Andersons attacked. As the NWA World Champion, Flair had to pick his battles, so it wasn't really a bad choice to leave Rhodes on his own. But Flair stopped when he reached the cage door. Had he changed his mind about saving his rival? Fans quickly discovered that was the furthest thing from Flair's mind. Instead, the Nature Boy locked the door, leaving Rhodes at the mercy of three of the most dangerous men in professional wrestling. Inside the locked cell, the three men began to pummel Dusty with hands and fists, leaving him a crumpled heap on the mat apron. From there, the Andersons and Flair, who was their kayfabe cousin, destroyed Dusty's ankle, with Flair landing a flying knee drop onto Dusty's ankle and then placing him in the figure four leg lock. While the formation of the Four Horsemen was a gradual process, this beatdown by the Andersons and Flair is often seen as the spark that lit the fuse to the Horsemen's formation. By 1985, Jim Crockett Promotions was the biggest player in the National Wrestling Alliance and positioned itself to battle Vince McMahon's quest to conquer all of wrestling. Over time, JCP absorbed GCW, which turned the Omni into one of several hotspots for JCP. This became evident at Starrcade 85 The Gathering, when JCP held its Thanksgiving Spectacular at two venues, Greensboro, North Carolina's Greensboro Coliseum and the Omni. Encouraged by 1985's two-city success, JCP repeated it, with the Omni hosting the Night of the Skywalkers, a scaffold match between Jim Cornette's Midnight Express and the Road Warriors. WarGames, The Match Beyond. Fans at the Omni were in for another historical happening when Dusty Rhodes unveiled his creation, WarGames. The bout featured two teams of five battling in not one, but two steel cage matches. The event became one of JCP's most popular matches, further consolidating Dusty's reputation as one of wrestling's most creative minds. WarGames wasn't invented in a vacuum, it was a logical evolution of everything the Omni had already normalized. Once again, fans attending Omni shows saw a new name on the marquee. In 1988, Ted Turner purchased Jim Crockett Promotions, transforming it into World Championship Wrestling. For better or for worse, it was the closest fans would get to the lineage established by Georgia Championship Wrestling and Jim Crockett Promotions. The Omni continued hosting major shows, including 1989 and 1992 Starrcade and episodes of WCW's Monday Nitro show. In addition, the WWF continued hosting events at the Omni in the late 80s and continuing into the early 1990s. Unfortunately, WCW, and wrestling in general, was in a slump, and as Cowboy Bill Watts, who was booking WCW at the time, remembers, the key venue for World Championship Wrestling on TBS had always been the Omni, but by 1992, it had fallen on hard times. The gates were down to about 25% of what they had been in previous years. Things had become so bad that WCW was only rarely running the Omni, and that was the company's hometown arena. Under Bill Watts, ticket sales briefly rebounded, but after his departure, they plummeted again. Attendance wouldn't truly recover until the boom years of the Monday Night War. Sadly, this was a moot point as the Omni's days were numbered. The Omni Implodes. The Omni's days were ultimately doomed, not by wrestling, basketball, or hockey alone, but by the failure of the very technical innovations that once justified its construction, along with rapidly changing business trends and major entertainment arenas. Writing in the Spokesman Review, columnist Vince Grippi cataloged the arena's growing list of problems as it neared the end of its lifespan. The roof leaks, pigeons have found a home inside, the narrow concourses are downright claustrophobic when big crowds pack the building, the Hawks complain about their tiny locker room. These issues symbolized a building that had been overtaken by time. What once seemed futuristic now felt cramped, outdated, and increasingly incompatible with modern professional sports. But as was so often the case, the decisive factor was money. When Ted Turner explored bringing the National Hockey League franchise back to Atlanta, he was bluntly told that the Omni Coliseum, which had previously housed the Atlanta Flames, no longer met league expectations. Major sports leagues now demanded revenue-generating features that the Omni simply could not provide: luxury suites, club seating, and modern premium amenities. On March 3, 1997, wrestling fans witnessed the final World Championship Wrestling card at the Omni Coliseum. While the Omni didn't last forever, the ideas born there did. Every time wrestling pushes scale, brutality, or spectacle just a little further, it's echoing experiments first run in Atlanta at the Omni. Perhaps that's why it felt fitting that the arena itself went out with a bang, deliberately rigged to implode. In its place now stands State Farm Arena, but the legacy of the Omni still looms over professional wrestling. Did you ever attend a wrestling card at the Omni? What do you think of its legacy, and where would you rate it among other wrestling venues? Share your thoughts in the comment section, and let us know if there are any videos you'd like Wrestling's Greatest Moments to cover. In the meantime, subscribe to our channel, follow us on X and Instagram, and spread the good news about Wrestling's Greatest Moments, the channel that celebrates the squared circle.